This video is only vestigially related to cars, in as much as you can use a torch or a light in your car at times, right? Olight is a big supporter of this channel. They've been with me for years and I really like their product. I use it every day. I've got two of these in the Fat Cave and they have been invaluable, you know, for lighting up little dingy corners, finding stuff that you drop under the bench, whatever. These things are great, and I carry one of these every day. If I am conscious, and yeah, it still happens occasionally, consciousness, even at my advanced age, I've got one of these on me, and it's super useful outside too. Like, if you're walking the dog at night and you drop something, or you just want to cut through the park and there's no lights, whatever, a torch is such a valuable thing to have. And then, of course, if you break down in the middle of nowhere, middle of night, in the sleep, whatever, you know, worst case scenario, a good source of light is a real advantage in that situation. So here are, in no particular order, my favourite Olights. I would suggest that if you are only going to buy one Olight, make it this baby. It is called a swivel. It's fairly unconventional, a bit big for the pocket, but great for the car and sensational for the shed. Now, it is a dimmable workshop light, but it is also a torch. And that functionality is awesome in and of itself, but it is also magnetic, so you can stick it to a vertical ferromagnetic surface, and then you can angle it whichever way you want, or inverted, or just sit it on the floor and it's not going to go anywhere. So that's pretty damn versatile. Now, you can also hang it because that's a carabiner. So they've really thought about this. It's made from really tough ABS plastic and it's kind of notchy and rugged, and I don't really sugarcoat the environment that these things live in. I've knocked them off the bench and, you know, they've been in the rain from time to time and they're kind of splash proof. This one is USB-C rechargeable, and you can probably see behind me just here the bigger brothers, the Swivel Pro and the Swivel Pro Max. They're both excellent as well. But honestly, these things are only like 40 bucks or so, and they are so useful and so versatile. Every boy deserves a swivel in his shed. And if you're looking for a present for your dad or something, these are awesome and they don't break the bank, so that's great. Now, in terms of everyday carry, there's a bunch of everyday carry torches, but my favourite is this baby. It's the Warrior Mini 2. There's actually a Warrior Mini 3 as well, and it's pretty good. It's actually got a better switch on the back that doesn't get magnetic filings accumulate within it quite as much, which is awesome, but you can't reverse the pocket clip like you can reverse the pocket clip on the Mini 2. And I dig that because I don't like carrying this way with the bezel up. I like carrying that way with the bezel down, because when you've got the torch in your pocket, 2 fingers, you're walking along, zombie attacks you, it's out, it's already indexed for your thumb for the tail switch, which is just like a laser beam, and that's kind of awesome. There's also, with these smaller Warrior series torches, there's a switch on the barrel that allows you to use the torch in sort of moonlight mode, and you can tweak up the brightness to various different levels like that. But if you need it in a hurry, the tail switch on the back, boom, zombie disorientation guaranteed, sort of mission accomplished. And these things do not break the bank either. They're drop tested and IPX, I'm going to say 8, but don't quote me on that, but waterproof enough for it not to matter. And the fact that you can reverse the tail clip is a real advantage, at least to me. So the Swivel and the Warrior Mini are great. Now, they make a whole bunch of Warrior style of quote-unquote tactical torches, which just means, in the torch domain, something that you can deploy in your hand in a hurry, and you don't need fine motor skills to make bright light happen. Because if it is a really stressful environment, like let's say there's a car crash and 3 people are hurt and you're the only bunny on the scene, you've got to triage the injured and it's the middle of the night, you have to manage communication with emergency services. In this situation, most people get highly stressed and all sorts of physiological changes happen that make it difficult to remember how to do fine motor things. So to me, this is just check the scene really easily. I hope you're never in this situation, but it's nice to have equipment designed to work for you if you ever are. And obviously, if someone ever tries to mug you, there's basically two kinds of typical mugging attacks. And one is you get smashed in the back of the head from behind and you wake up kind of disoriented on the ground. And the other one involves a job interview where your would-be employer interviews you to become their victim and see if you're the suitable candidate. And basically, in this situation, being interviewed like that, you are standing on the X, okay? The ambush is ready, you're on the X, and you've got to get off the X somehow. And if you talk to the cops, like you talk to cops who are used to taking statements from the victims of violent crime, and they will tell you that a large number of people who get mugged that will say something like, I knew there was something wrong with that guy. Well, that's the time when you need to act. And one of the best ways to act is just to tell them to stop, get out of your face, you're not part of this, leave, boom. And then you haven't really injured them, but they can't see you properly. All they're seeing is blue and purple spotches. And that's enough for you not to be the successful job candidate in that situation. So to have that kind of leverage that doesn't involve injuring the other party, but it neutralises them to a degree as a threat, that's pretty powerful if you are ever in an unscripted way in that situation. Better to have it than not, I'd suggest, and better for it to be right than not, I'd suggest. Better for it not to be a cheap shit torch, I'd suggest. Yeah, actually much better, because failure is not optional in that situation. You've got to grab it, you've got to put your thumb in the right spot, and boom, light has to happen, and it has to be bright. So I've never had my Warrior Mini fail on me ever, and I don't have to charge it up very often, so it's great. I love that torch, I have to say. Now, there are bigger options as well. I always get confused. There's an S3 and an X. There's a 3S and an X3. This is the X3. This is the 3S, I'm going to say. And this is the 3S. Yes. And it's everything the Warrior Mini is times about 1.8. It's just bigger and better, but it's still got the switch on the barrel. So you can still do the fine moonlight work like this, but if 10 zombies jump out, boom, they're all disoriented and blinded, and it's just bigger and beefier. It's pocketable, but you are going to feel it in your pocket if you dress like, I don't know, the Gibb brothers from Staying Alive or something, right? So there's that to consider. The beauty of Warrior Mini 2, of course, is that it's so small that there's no excuse for not carrying it, Like, you can never say, oh no, I can't possibly carry that, it's too heavy. In some situations that would be too heavy, and that's a reason not to carry it. If you need it, that's a bit of a bastard. So that's why I carry Mini 2 every time. It's because, you go for a 10k walk through the bush around here, and if you sprain your ankle and it takes you longer to get out, the sun sets and you need to, light up the way or something, then at least you've got it. Whereas you think, oh, if you want to walk 10k's really fast, I might not want to carry a really heavy torch in the pocket of my shorts or whatever, right? And then it's not with you, and getting out of that situation is just more of a bastard. So there's that. And then you can go for the X3, which is the full Mila Jovovich zombie apocalypse disaster torch. Super bright, super beefy, bit big to pocket, but same basic tail switch functionality. It's got this rubber ring thingo that comes with it that basically helps you grip it. So I guess if you're fighting hand to hand with 100 zombies, it is easier to retain the grip. And in the automotive domain, you can probably see here on the bezel, there are those 3 spots that are 120 degrees apart. They're zirconium beads, which are really good for breaking the windows of vehicles to gain access to injured people or kids who've been locked in hot cars in summer or something like that. The pro tip with breaking the windows, of course, is that you should look for the corner of the window where the A or where the B or C pillar join the roof line, in that corner is the place to hit the window, because the residual stresses from tempering the glass are badly resolved in that corner, and you've got much more chance of getting through quickly. Essentially what you're starting is one of those Prince Rupert's drop catastrophic failure reactions, but it's very difficult to impose enough shock in the middle of the glass to break it effectively. So if you go for the edges, and in particular the corner, that's a really good place to break the window if you ever need to do that. That's the way Isaac Newton would say you should break the window. Now, if you do a lot of long-range searching, like you might be a boatie, for example, or you might just be driving on a farm and you might need to look into the distance to see what something is without actually going there, this Javelot Mini is awesome. Javelot is like code name for Searchlight when it comes to Olightsville. Now, that is a really bright searchlight. You can light up the road hundreds of metres, side to side, whatever. If you're doing any search and rescue stuff out of a boat, or you just need any long range stuff. The beam from this torch is highly concentrated, but it's got a bit of a sort of diffuse cone around it as well, so you can spot things in the periphery and then zone in on them with the intense beam in the middle. It's literally brilliant, and it's too big to pocket. The diameter's too big to shove in your pocket in most garments, but this plastic sheath is sensational. It's really well designed, retention is high, and you can charge it up. Like all of these torches charge up with the same magnetic base thingo. I've got one over there, but you've probably seen. I'll show you anyway. The magnetic thing is really clever. Okay, basically it's a heat-seeking missile. Boom. There's USB on the other side, so easy to recharge, and you don't even have to take it out of its holster to do that. All of these torches are the same, so if you've got 3 Olights, you can have one of these cables in the car, and you can have one of these cables in your office, and you can have one of these cables in your shed, and the job is done. The swivel does not charge that way. It uses standard USB-C, but the next torch, which is the Marauder Mini, is the same sort of magnetic thing, right? It doesn't have a switch on the back though, it's just a charging port, so there's that. The Marauder Mini's big trick is if you do a lot of camping, you might need a searchlight, like a tight beam some of the time, but a lot of the other time you're just going to need a floodlight, right? And sometimes you're going to need that to be really, really bright, and sometimes you're going to need it to be really, really gentle. So the other cool thing about some of these torches, the Javelot is one of them, and also this baby, is it's got accidental activation protection, get it right, where you have to twist the switch a little bit and then you can turn it on. If you just press it, like if it's just riding around in the center console and something sits on it, it will not activate the torch, which is kind of clever as well. So this is ramped right down on the flood setting to the minimum setting. Then you got a little switch here and you go to the search like spot beam. Okay, and I'll try and pick a spot on the wall to show you, and we'll ramp it up to the maximum. That's pretty bright now. Yeah, you can see that. There we go. And then we're going to switch to flood. Boom. And then back to spot. So that's pretty clever. It's essentially 2 torches in one, and dimmable. You know, it's very versatile. Essentially great for general purpose camping. I guess if I was going to go on a real blue singlet 4-wheel drive adventure or something, the Marauder Mini would be a great option, and super easy to keep fully charged in the car. Not that it's the kind of thing that needs charging every day. You'd have to use the torch a hell of a lot to charge it every day. Speaking of the blue singlet adventure, okay, one of the things you might need is a nice little lantern around the campsite, and this certainly is that. Dimmable and offable, helpfully. But you got your nice warm light, and now you got your nice cool light. So this might be kitchen mode, and this might be singing Willie Nelson songs around the fire mode. And they call this the O-Lantern Stretch. I have absolutely no idea why, but go figure. That's the name they gave it. And in addition to all of this functionality, which is pretty useful for camping because, you know, you got your little table somewhere and you got to cut up the fish that you just managed to catch for dinner because you're showing the kids how Daniel Boone did it in the olden days or something. It's always nice to have a little bit of campfire light like that focuses the theatre around, you know, the activity du jour. And finally, a party trick for this baby is that it's also an emergency power bank. So, you know, if one of the kids has an emergency, like their phone goes flat or something, you can stop it being, you know, the kind of thing you need to call in a Black Hawk helicopter and get them dusted off over. So O-Lantern Stretch might be a nice option for you if you do a whole bunch of camping with the kids. Now, Olight do some pretty cool knives as well. They've got one on special. This is called the Sentry R1. Ah, damn it! It's hard to flick this baby. There you go. You need a thumb that's like 6 inches longer than normal, but this one is I like it better with the warm light on, you know? I've become accustomed to it now. Might be a feature of future videos, who knows? But the Sentry R1 is basically a cleaver. It's what a cleaver would be if a cleaver had to be in a zombie apocalypse also, I think. So, great campfire food preparation knife and newly released. So it's a new product of theirs. It's got a line, I think they call this a rail lock, I think. Anyway, it's deployable one-handed. You can use either hand to deploy it, and it locks in place, so you're not going to cut your fingers off while you're doing whatever around the kitchen campfire sort of scenario. It's not bad. I'm not sure it's a knife that I would buy. I'd probably just take a kitchen knife to do the kitchen work. But the knives that I really do love from Olight are the Robato series. In particular, I'm going to say this is Robato 2, and I'm going to say this is Robato 4. But I always get them mixed up too. To me, these are basically the ideal knives, because they're not stupid long and they're not stupid pointy. They're actually useful tools when they're this kind of proportion. There's not a box from Amazon that has a snowball's chance in hell against a knife such as this, right? They're just really useful for general around the campfire jobs, and if you have to strip wire or do anything like that, they're quite useful. And they've also got the rail lock, so that's good. Now, every time I demonstrate my misspent youth by doing that, someone writes in and says, oh, that's illegal. You can't have a knife that deploys like a flick knife. I'm not doing that. I'm just using the thumb stud to open it, and then I'm just giving it a bit of wrist and then putting it together like Misspent Youth 101. And when you get reasonably good at that, you can use your non-dominant hand, and that's a real challenge as well for a while until you bake those circuits in too. But if you ever need to open a knife up a ladder to cut a piece of rope or something of that nature, being able to deploy it one-handed is safer than opening the knife like that. And even if you can deploy it just with a thumb stud, that's pretty cool. The beauty about these Olight knives is they use high quality products, like they use high quality steel 154 cm, or sometimes they use that vanadium alloy, S something, whatever, vanadium alloy. It's pretty good for edge retention and toughness as well, but they're both good for that. And if you wanted, say, a knife in a toolkit that you were going to abuse a bit, you wouldn't do that with a $500 Benchmade folder. That would be abusive, disrespectful, whatever. But you could do that with an O-knife because it's not going to break the bank. It's kind of disposable. And even if you had, you're going on a four-wheel drive, quote-unquote, adventure, you might have a bug-out bag in the car so that if there's a huge problem, car burns to the ground, something like that, you grab your bug-out bag if you can, and it's got the stuff that helps you get to safety or get home, whatever. And typically you don't have your very best premium products in that. You wouldn't have your $500 Benchmade folder in that. You'd have an affordable knife where the quality was high and the cost was low, and it was enough to do the job, right? Or I wouldn't feel guilty particularly about abusing this knife if I had to abuse it to get something done. If I was kind of up against it in the bush and I had to start a fire and I had to baton this through a chunk of wood to make smaller wood to, get kindling or whatever, then I wouldn't feel guilty about batoning the shit out of this, for example, or, reefing it up, like tying it onto a stick and using it as a spear if I had to, kind of thing, if the chips were down. So, these kinds of knives have their place. They're probably never going to challenge Benchmade or, any of the other premium brands, but they're very satisfying to use because they're well made and the materials are great, and I just like them. I've got, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them in the fat cave around here. I got a bunch of them. I got the Tanto style Robato just here where I keep all my markers, and just sundry little hand tools I need for marking out around here. It's pretty good as well. Although for mine, the pointier they are, really the less useful they tend to be for me in the real world. I know they have their place, and I don't want to insult 1,000 Japanese swordsmiths by saying the Tanto shape isn't great. It probably is. It's just not to my liking. I'd rather have that or that, because to me they're just really useful, really robust. The tips are going to be maximally durable, and you can do a lot of honest work with a knife like this. Now, it goes without saying, especially in light of recent developments in Australia, that you have to have a reason, a legally acceptable reason, to carry a knife in a public place. And complying with the law is kind of not optional. So I'd be very careful about, walking around with a knife. But if you're going camping or things of this nature, then obviously it's acceptable to have a tool like that on you, and I don't think anybody's going to think you're being unreasonable by carrying a knife with a blade that's only, I don't know, less than 3 inches long, kind of thing. So the bottom line with this sale is that Olight wanted to extend a further discount to you. You'll get another 5% off the entire range of things that you might buy during the sale with the code JC5. I'll put all of that stuff in the description, but up to 55% off is a substantial discount for the next few days until Friday night at midnight. And I'd suggest that, I really just wanted to do this video to make it easier for you to cut through all of the noise and all of the staggering choice on Olight's website, and just get a handle on the kind of products, at least that I've used extensively and which I really rate. And all of those ones, I really rate them. And if you need a torch or a knife or a product like that to do the kind of job that those ones are specifically good at, then you will not be disappointed. And that's why Olight is essentially one of my favourite brands. I'd also like to thank Olight for extending that additional discount to you and for the support they've shown me over the past several years. That's it for me. Thanks for watching.